Thank you, Chairman, for inviting me to speak today. My name is Gina Daniel, and I'm here to give my testimony on Bill H.R. 1526, specifically Title III, which is referred to as the O&C Trust, Conservation, and Jobs Act. Oregon House members Walden, Schrader, and DeFazio have created this act. Their reasoning for this bill is to create logging jobs, create funding for county services, protect wildlife, and potentially save the government millions of dollars. Now, all of these reasons sound great, but the bill's impact on ecosystem biodiversity and many endangered species in this area are much too large to be ignored. Within the lands proposed to be in the Oregon and California Trust Land, there are species on the brink of survival. The northern spotted owl is the poster child of endangered species in this area, but the impacts of this bill could also be felt in the salmon populations, along with others that we might not even know about at this point. In Section 312, paragraph A2 in this bill, it is stated that, quote, actions on the O&C trust lands shall be deemed to involve no federal agency action or federal discretionary involvement or control, and the laws of the state shall apply to the surface estate of the O&C trust lands in the manner applicable to privately owned timberlands in this state. This statement protects the O&C trust from certain parts of the Endangered Species Act and Clean Water Act that are used for private owners. Specifically, Section 7 of the Endangered Species Act, in which the Fish and Wildlife Service must be consulted before doing activities that may harm endangered species, does not apply to lands on this trust. This could be detrimental to the management and protection of wildlife, including the endangered northern spotted owl. This bill also waives requirements pertaining to the Clean Water Act. The trust lands would not need pollution permits required for logging roads and drainage ditches. This could result in excess runoff of sediments that would greatly affect stream ecosystem in this area. Specifically, for the salmon in this area, excess sediment would be abrasive to their gills and could possibly cover up their eggs if the runoff is near a spawning area. Overall, the trust lands will be without many of the regulations of other logged areas. This lack of certain regulations could be detrimental to species populations in the area, especially the northern spotted owl. This bill is proposing to transfer 1.5 million acres of land into the O&C Trust so that these lands can be more profitably logged for their resources. In Section 314, paragraph C of this bill, the rotation of harvesting is explained. The Act states that, quote, the Board of Trustees shall manage not less than 50% of the harvestable areas on a 100 to 120 year rotation, end quote. It goes on to say that the areas will be geographically dispersed and up to the discretion of the Board of Trustees. The quantity of logging that this bill is describing is estimated to be up to 3 times as much as the current logging rate in this area. This clear-cutting of such large quantities of land could be detrimental to ecosystem biodiversity and the overall forest dynamic. Forests are carbon sinks. They absorb vast amounts of carbon from the atmosphere and store it in the trees. By cutting down these forests, the trees no longer sequester this carbon. And depending on how the tree is used, the carbon can be put right back into the atmosphere. This carbon sequestration is just one of many ecosystem services that a healthy forest provides for biodiversity and for us. This bill is lacking consideration of what else forests are used for other than timber acquisition. They take excess carbon from the atmosphere, provide tourism, our spiritual outlook, and much more. Even though I have focused on the negatives of this bill, there are still some parts I would agree with. The Old Growth Protection Program, the establishment of wilderness reserves, and the Scenic River Protection are great programs that should be enacted. Tree harvesting is necessary, but the scope proposed in this bill and the relaxation of policies makes me unable to support it. I am an American, and I believe in job creation and using our natural resources. However, this bill is not the way to do this. Thank you again for letting me speak today, and I hope my testimony will be helpful in your decisions on this bill.